Right, so after a good ride, which I came in the Defender in, it'll be a good time to show you my little toolbox which I carry around, of what things I carry around with me, in case you're thinking of making your own toolbox and you don't know what to carry. It would also be good to hear in the comments about what you put in your toolbox. Mine has basically been conditioned from, as you'll see, from a couple of issues I've had out there with derailleurs and seat posts. So in the box, generally I have some spare things for valves because I run tubeless. On this bike, as I do on pretty much all of my bikes, except ones I don't use very often, or very speciality ones like the TT bike, which run very specific tyres on. Won't get into that now. Always carry some grease for many reasons. One of them, just when you're putting pedals on and off, if you have to take anything off and put it back on again, always use a little bit of grease. So that's grease. I mean, it's useful for all sorts of things. So two things which are really important, I find, for a bicycle are things that can go wrong because they're points of contact. One of them is let's get these things out as I use them, otherwise I'll be here all day. Spare derailleur hanger, always very important. Even though I use a hard case when I'm transporting, even in the car here, I make sure that I put them with the side of the derailleur that way, so if they do fall over this way they don't bang them, etc. But still, you can damage the derailleur pretty much anywhere. Here I've got the seat mechanism, which this time is not broken by me being very tired and doing a jump or sitting, landing badly on the saddle, but it is from someone's fouled it up in the shop wherever I took it, when they always tell you that wonderful phrase, I've torqued up all of your bolts. It's like, oh yeah, they were already torqued up, thank you. I mean, obviously they can loosen, but generally what that means is you're going to struggle to undo your bolt afterwards because they torque them a bit higher. I mean, there's no, was it 4 Newton meters on there and 7 on here. They don't really need to be any tight. Chains, I've got the 2 chains in here. I've got the gold one and the original silver one, and carry those in case when you're traveling sometimes I've had to change the ratio or change the cassette out, and they don't necessarily always have the speciality 9 to 32 or 36 that I've got on there, and so I'll have to put another one on. Chains always good. Inner tubes always good. Always talc them. They just, especially if you're trying to get a tube into a tubeless setup that has not sealed, this will just make it a hell of a lot easier. You're trying to get it in there with all of the sealant, etc. that's still there. It will make your life a lot easier. These gloves are quite important if you don't want to make a mess of yourself. It sounded wrong, didn't it? If you don't want to make a mess of your hands. Sealant in a bottle. No matter how big you buy a bottle, always have enough sealant to, generally you can kind of seal a hole with that, and quite often I'll even stick that in my jersey if you arrive somewhere. Like I did a ride in the last couple of years in the Cotswolds. You arrive and you basically see pea punctures already in the car park because of all the flints that have been washed out. You can never have enough tyre levers. People always underestimate how important tyre levers are, and no, you can't. I mean, in the good old days of hard steel or aluminium rims, you may have used a spoon or something, or the screwdriver within your tool set, but honestly, in carbon rims, you want these. Now, also these CO2 cartridges, I always carry a few of them with me. They are very useful, but you've got to remember to take them out on a plane. They don't really like them on planes. And then I have some patches. Now, these can be quite useful, even if you set up tubeless. I put them on the inside of the tyre if you've got a bad cut on your tyre. Sometimes use the glueless ones, but also use the glued ones. I have both here in case you need them. Various things I've sort of doubled up here with the valves, but these things to take out the valves. One thing that people always underestimate, and even on here I've got a wolf tooth tool to undo the valve. You can't always do it in the field, especially with frozen fingers, and so there is the little tool in here to help you take that off. Other than that, a tiny little squirt bottle. I use squirt for lube on the chain, but you can keep filling up this little tiny bottle, which I think needs a top up again. It's been in the heat of, as you can see, it was in the heat of Spain this summer, where it was about 47 degrees in some of the areas I was driving through, and it sort of slowly filled up. But I'll sort that out when I get back. Spare mounty things for your GPSs, always quite useful. Spare cables and mounts for your lights, always quite useful. And finally, at the bottom, I have some wipes, some Scotch tape for putting your bar tape back on if it's fallen off. You know it always does at the worst moment, especially when you're abroad. Be careful with missing link pliers, they can be vicious. Cable ties, these are from a company in England that's not existed for a while. I'm forgetting my chain tool, chain breaker, which is very important, but also it's important to have extra cleats and spare thingamies. Thingamies are very important, always have thingamies. Finally, I suppose, what does complement this, I do have a multi-tool that's in the bottle cage. I find that, I mean, I used to carry it as a sort of as a thing I liked to have and a precaution, but nowadays I've got these toolless through bolts which need a 5mm or 4mm, can't remember. There's just so many things that you need a tool for, and while I'm on that, I'll get on to something else in a video about swapping out. So in this I've got a 2.5, I can't remember, there's a mountain bike version, there's a road bike version, and I've got both of them. But I think there's like a 2.5, 3, 4, 5mm. There's a bigger 7 or 8mm to, if in an emergency you need to tighten your chainring bolt, which is very useful. But it only has one Torx, which is, I think is a T20 or a T25. And on my bike I have an annoying T27 or T30. I can't work it out yet. I have to email 3T and work out what size the bolt is on the seat tube. And on here as well, which is slightly out of shot, but on the stem I've got a funny, I think it's a T30. And what I generally do, and there's like, is swap those out. So on the stem I had T27s, T25s, can't remember, holding the stem plate in. I've swapped those for other titanium ones, and I'm in the process of swapping the bolt, which you can't see here. I need to swap this bolt. But long story short, swapping the bolts for things that you have in here. But in here I have what Specialized do them, other people do them as well, and they're very good. It's a little sort of wrap that you put on the back of your saddle that has an inner tube, some levers, a CO2 cartridge, and I've also put the wolf tooth multi-tool that contains the pliers to ply open your chain. Because if I didn't have that, I would have in this box a separate chain tool, because trying to separate a chain in the field, you know, generally if a chain you need to do some work on it, it's because it's dirty and messed up, and you know, trying to pry it open without those, you can obviously use a cable tie, and there's probably some other things in here that I can use, but it's not ideal. So I hope that's useful. That's one of my toolboxes. It's the one I kind of generally keep in the car, or it goes in the bottom of my bike box that I travel with. So let me know, is there anything I'm missing? Is there anything else you'd put in? Is there anything I'm wasting my time with? Any suggestions in the comments? It's a really useful box from a company called Really Useful Box. It's a 3-litre one. It fits perfectly in the bottom of my hard carry case, so it doesn't rattle around, and generally I put a pad on the top, and the chain set or the crank goes on top of there. So yeah, very useful little box, as it says. Some of these also have a front opening mechanism, which makes them even more useful, but probably don't want it on something this small. Good, hope it helps. If it does, subscribe. I'm going to have my espresso in the back of the car now before heading off and doing some other stuff. Thanks, bye. Showing you the full coffee-liciousness. There you go. So you can do it one-handed. Now, this was hot water when I put it in. It's not particularly hot now, but it's still making a pretty damn good espresso. Here is espresso can, and as you can see, one creamed espresso, one mucky bike, and one lovely sunset.